In 2020, Bridge Street Studios celebrated the 25th anniversary of its founding. An exhibition entitled Silver was planned, but the COVID lockdown made an indoor exhibition impossible. Rather than cancel, the Bridge Street artists turned Dundalk town into an outdoor art gallery. They mounted their work in disused shop windows and used social media to promote the exhibition as a walking art trail. In this film, the Bridge Street artists look back on the studio's first 25 years while preparing their silver anniversary exhibition. We started discussing a group show for the silver anniversary project about 2 years ago.
Rather than everybody kind of going off and working from their own source material, that we would have something that everybody would work from.
Over the years we've collaborated with Barbara Smith, the local poet, so we thought it'd be nice again to collaborate with her, and we would respond to a poem that she wrote which was titled Silver.
Oh yeah, then I started talking about a silver thread and a field of the cloth of silver.
It kind of helped give a bit more scope for words and images that we could take inspiration from.
Like this.
But it's good in a way because then you have other ideas that you go back to, and you know.
And it's kind of good to get it all out of your system then. But will you use the others in the future, Orla?
It just stretches you, you know, if there's a theme, you do your research on it and you'll end up doing something that you wouldn't normally do.
And then I came up with the idea of the figures, and then I wanted to retreat away from the figures again because they were, you know, it was a bit of a leap.
So that was where it started, and Barbara got the commission to write the poem about silver, so she could take that wherever she wanted.
For the artists at Bridge Street on their anniversary. The slow silver heartbreak of another day. Tarnished reflections in the grey. Gossamer webs of autumn spun across branches of our lives reflect motes that gather, urgent hints at hidden things, entwining strings, which disappear in an unexpected gleaming, revealing new silver dewdrops, steaming, as the sun reveals the tendrils of morning, a new day.
The studio was founded by Francis Lamb, Declan Honan, Catherine Sinnott and Joanne McKenna. When I came first, we had no central heating, we had no indoor toilet, and we actually occupied the top two floors of the building. And in the year 2000, we borrowed the next floor, and then after 6 months or so we kind of realised there was more people looking for spaces and that we would take it on permanently. Our landlord has been very generous over the years. We did a lot of work, we put electricity into it, we put all gallery lighting in. So at one point there would have been 14 artists here in the studio, but it was very tightly packed. People had very small spaces, and then over the years we kind of loosened that up a little bit and allowed kind of more space per artist, and then in the last few years we've expanded our gallery space, which made it possible to have like a classroom and workshop space there. So it's kind of a flexible space. It can be just all gallery or it can be classroom and workshop space as well. We are an artist collective and it is a shared space, but it's a little bit different. It is much more of a community and a family, because I think because we work in an open plan space, we work very closely together, even when we're working on our individual things.
So we kind of agreed that as the basement wasn't going to be open, the local gallery here in Anton, we'd take it to the streets. So it was a case of approaching the shop owners here who had some vacant shops. So windows obviously open to the streets. They were kind enough to loan us their shop fronts for a month.
There were challenges getting the venues set up for displaying the work, in that there were no structures there. So we only had a couple of days as well.
Some of the buildings were old, so there was a lot of condensation on the windows, so that was a concern that maybe we wouldn't be able to see the work.
My work ended up being in what was once a bike shop. So there's just one window about 2 metres wide. It was a nice space to work with, and at least I had electricity, which some shops didn't.
Some of our members are very well seasoned and getting over obstacles, and we had Mary cracking the whip on the carpentry end of things, which was wonderful. It was Mary's idea about the boards, and I think it was a really good idea for the boards for the windows.
Then we found sometimes the boards were too big or they were too small, or we needed to kind of cut those down, and then they wouldn't stand up on their own, so we needed to kind of stabilise them in some way and build frames for them on the spot. And obviously this is all within a very limited time.
Tempers can get a little frayed at times, a few tears were shed, but you know, that's kind of what putting up an exhibition is.
Obviously we were reacting to Barbara Smith's poem, which to me had quite an autumnal theme, and I went a bit deeper with it. It kind of, you know, it had slightly had a dark edge, but the end was that tomorrow was a new day, you know. And I think with lockdown, whether we wanted to or not, it was in our psyche that we were kind of stifled. But I'm lucky enough, I live on Sleep Gullion, so in lockdown I had a beautiful muse in the mountain itself, and that's come out in my pieces, I think. And they've also been quite personal, because 2 of them were to do with loss. We lost somebody during lockdown. We couldn't mourn them in the normal way, and to me their spirit, it couldn't go with death. The spirit had to go on somewhere, and that definitely translated into the pieces into the night skies. And that's really my inspiration for Silver, was my immediate surroundings and emotions, and also a sense of collective belonging.
We had the poem quite a long time before I figured out how I was going to respond to it. I found it quite tricky. I suppose I was just kind of coming around to thinking about making work when the pandemic hit, and I found it very difficult to be creative at that time. It was, you know, I came up with ideas and they just kind of didn't go anywhere. So I went back and read the poem again and just had to think about what I would like to make. Every time I read the poem, I just thought of that instance when you wake in the morning and you have fresh realizations, like even just, oh, it's Sunday, or I don't have to go to work today, or I do, or whatever. And that kind of idea in your head where you might tilt your head or think about something, or, you know, your expression may just change slightly as each realisation comes to you.
The inspiration I took from the poem was that it was about the cycle of nature, and that same cycle, how it applies to life, you know, how things die and regrow, and there's always a spark of hope that a new day will bring, and that you build up a bit of resilience over time. And I wanted to make pieces that would recreate that feeling. So I painted a series of watercolours, and I put in a lot of metallic colours to make them look kind of precious. I wanted them to be like that little spark of hope, you know, that you have even if you've had a hard day or a hard time, that things regrow and that there's always renewal and hope. And I made a series of symbols that basically illustrated the words of the poem.
I looked at drawings of the atomic structure of silver, and there were beautiful drawings, like of spheres, kind of like attached to each other with rod-like structures. So there was one drawing in particular that I really liked, so I just looked at that drawing and took sections of it, the compositions that I liked, and I made 6 panels using 6 different compositions from the one drawing. So there were ceramic panels, they're free mounted, so they don't have a frame or anything, and it's kind of just like circles and stick or rods, and a lot of texture in the pieces.
Themes, like I said, went back to kind of elements relating to my family. So one of the ideas for one of the pieces is a thing called a tussie mussy, which is like a small posy of flowers which have kind of hidden meanings, and that's kind of stems from Victorian times. So that was one of the starting points for one of my pieces, which is made from watercolour paper which has been painted and varnished. So that was the first piece I started working on. So that kind of led, I suppose, to the involvement of the other pieces, which again relate back to the fact that both my brothers are gardeners. My grandparents were influential in my upbringing in terms of arts and creativity and culture, so books, reading, you know, the finer things of life.
The poem refers to reflected or reflections, and I picked up on that word and kind of extrapolated into the idea of mirrors and the reflections in mirrors, and also that silver is used to coat the back of mirrors. That's what provides the reflective surface, so that tied in neatly. So I was thinking about mirrors and the reflections and kind of how everyday life was continuing, but during lockdown, and how that was, but it was still quite odd, so there was things askew, and also tying that in with a lot of my source material, my photographs of my own personal life. It became about, you know, ordinary moments that are actually extraordinary or become extraordinary, and how you can make ordinary moments extraordinary through kind of leaps of the imagination.
During COVID, because we were only allowed go so many kilometres, so you know, I'd start going on all these walks, and on my walks I just started to look at blossom trees, and I just started to really look at my surroundings, which I found maybe I was too busy to do in the past. And I just started to gather up leaves, acorns, flowers, lots of things like that, and I took them home and I'd look at them and I'd start to draw from them. Also, another artist friend of mine, we had a challenge every day where we challenged each other to do something arty in a book, and we would send pictures of what we'd done through WhatsApp, and every day we would set a challenge, whether it was my turn or her turn, and I just noticed that a lot of it was around nature.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're all very welcome to the latest in a long line of Anton Art Centre's off-site associations for this strange year that we find ourselves in. Tonight we're in a space on Clanbassel Street, but I'll let one of the artists talk about that in a second.
The Silver exhibition was launched online in December 2020 from one of the off-site exhibition spaces around Dundalk. The launch was hosted by Paul Hayes, Artistic Director of Anton Art Centre, which co-sponsored the exhibition. The exhibition ran for 4 weeks until January 2021.
And Barbara's going to recite her poem. So, Barbara.
Thank you. Silver, for the artists at Bridge Street on their anniversary. The slow silver heartbreak of another day, tarnished reflections in grey. Gossamer webs of autumn spun across branches of our lives, reflect motes that gather, urgent hints at hidden things, entwining strings which disappear in an unexpected gleaming, revealing new silver dewdrops, steaming as the sun reveals the tendrils of morning, a new day.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you for that. Thank you for everybody in the background. Joanne, if I can ask you to come in. Joanne.
Well, I've seen a lot of people, coming and going in Bridge Street because I've been here since so long. And I think we've definitely evolved it's definitely very professional.
Yeah, Sarah was asking me today if I was going to do the exhibition, and I kind of said no, but it just...
Then I said, why not?
Yeah.
Kind of said no.
Which one, Mary?
I'm a member of other groups and I take part in other exhibitions, but with those you kind of a lot of time you just make the work and you send it off. But with Bridge Street here, we're involved in everything.
You're not just an artist, you might even need to be a carpenter or an accountant or whatever else.
As a space and a studio, it's like a safe haven, it's a sanctuary, it's therapeutic.
As we got more mature in our practices, you can see that everybody's work is getting better, and we can, help each other and work together to say, try this or try that, or, help each other out.
It was actually really good in terms of raising our profile in the town and getting our brand out there, you know.
You're able to kind of get advice and benefit from their experience and all sorts of things, exhibiting work, applying for projects, putting projects together, project management. It's endless actually, the benefits of working in a studio like this.